Y'all, welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wargaming, where two guys who aren't qualified to talk about anything decide to talk about a game with hard math and chance. I'm Joe.
And I'm John.
And this is a momentous occasion for all of our listeners out there, all like 15 of you, because this is the finale of our 10-part series guiding new hobbyists into this hobby. And today's episode is something we have been looking forward to recording since we started talking about this back when we were planning episode 1. John, what are we talking about?
So today we're going to be talking about how to get new players into the hobby, and we're going to warn you, it's going to sound like getting people into a cult. You're kind of right, but it's not like Heaven's Gate, and you don't have to drink Kool-Aid.
Well, I actually disagree with that last part, because Kool-Aid is a lovely addition to a great game night. So there probably will be Kool-Aid, but I promise you, it's not spiked. So, for John and I, this is our favorite part of the hobby. Like, we could go back and forth on what our favorite game system is, and we could go back and forth on what our favorite armies are, or what our favorite archetypes of armies are, or what our favorite mechanics are. But one thing dwarfs all of those other things, makes them look awful and childish. Our favorite thing to do in this hobby is to get new players into it. And we have done this with more people than I care to admit in our various friend groups. Because we just can't help ourselves.
Yeah, it's something that we both separately do with other people, but also we will occasionally have a shared friend that we will be like, oh, you, we are going to get you into this game. It is something you will absolutely love, and you're going to play with us all the time.
Yeah, if they meant, like, we talk about the hobby some in our various social circles, and if someone says the words, I might like to try that, we pounce on them like a puma leaping from a ridge to pin them down and force feed them miniatures. And before you know it, they are a card-carrying member of the Plastic Crack Addiction Association. It is just so satisfying to be able to take this hobby and share it with other people. And I think not only is it satisfying to do, but I would argue that other people should do it. So we thought it was worth having an episode about it all to itself, rather than burying it in with another topic. I think it's worth discussing it as its own overarching philosophy and idea, because trying to get someone into a new game system, especially this game system, can be kind of daunting, because as our last 9 episodes have shown you, there's just a lot to it.
Yeah, like there's I am learning new things every day in this hobby. Joe, I think you can agree.
Oh God,
and
yes.
This situation, like, you are not going to be able to tell somebody everything they need to know to get into the game, but you can tell them just enough to get them interested to start their own journey of learning both hobby stuff and mechanics and what they like and what they don't like. And I think, like, what we're trying to accomplish with this specific episode is, like, a good tie-up for our first 10 episodes is how to take things we've talked about here and things we're going to talk about within this episode and share that with other people you might think are interested, whether you're an old player or a newer player, maybe you're listening to this down the road. A lot of this should just hold up as ideas, regardless of edition, regardless of game system.
Yep, I think as our goal is most of the time, we try to talk about things without being hyper-specific and really getting into the weeds on a lot of this stuff. Because the games will change over time. You know, the mechanics will come and go. Factions will probably be released that right now we didn't even know were on the horizon. But overarching thoughts and strategies in approaching the hobby healthily, I think, are kind of evergreen. That they're not really going to change too much. And I think this one in particular will always stay relevant. Because as we've talked about before, this is a hobby that is kind of unique in terms of the gaming realm. I think it was episode 7 when we were talking about game stores. We touched on the idea that in a tabletop war game hobby, you do not get to just click find match on a computer and then it match you with an opponent of roughly equal skill. Like, that is just not a thing we can do. We have to find our opponents in person and meet up with each other to play these games and have a good time. And I think on top of, some of the other reasons that we're going to get into here in a moment, just in terms of practicality, having more people to potentially get games in with is good for all of us. It helps to grow the community as a whole and improve the scene in your local area, especially if you're bringing in some really cool people who other folks might like getting to play with.
Absolutely. And you can also, by getting new people into the hobby, bring especially people you're already friends with. Like if you're already friends with some folks that might be interested in the game, pulling them in just adds another thing for you to interact with these people with. And you can create your own little group to play with. So like if a game store doesn't exist in your town, or maybe it's not a good one, or maybe you don't, like maybe it closes, like a lot of businesses are right now, like you'll have people to play with, and this won't feel like the hobby died. Mm-hmm. You'll be able to interact with people, and more than just like on the internet. Like you can go to Reddit and you can look at all the 40K stuff, but that's not the same as being able to play a game with somebody at a within a reasonable distance away from you. And that's one of the reasons why bringing people in that would actually enjoy this is very beneficial for you as a player, but also them, because most people that I've gotten into this hobby don't regret it.
Yeah, I will give it that. It has at least for me, I have a 100% success rate with no regrets from the people who I got into it, which is pretty rare to say, because like other games I've gotten people into over the years, they definitely regret some of them, For the people who I kind of talked into playing League of Legends with me in college, I apologize formally to all of you. But in this one in particular, it can be fulfilling, and I think that's worth sharing with folks.
Yeah, the aspects of this hobby that make it so enticing and encompassing is that you can get a lot of different things you as a person will need as to be a person. Like you get artistic expression, you have games, you have social aspects. There's a lot to do around it. If you like going to conventions, there's conventions for this stuff. Like,
oh yeah, pretty big ones.
And you can do as little or as much with this hobby as you want. If you just want to buy a box of dudes a month, build and paint them, and play a game once a month with your buddy down the street, you can do that. If you want to make a podcast and do a bunch of stuff about the hobby, you can do that too.
We did it. You definitely can too. Guarantee.
But you can't do any of that without people to play with, without friends.
It all stops there. If you have nobody to play with, it gets real difficult. And, if that's not enough for sort of the more pragmatically minded folks out there, I think the second sort of, I will call it tangential reason to get more people into the game is that when you have to teach somebody something, it forces you as the teacher to have a better understanding of the subject matter that you were trying to impart to somebody. Because they're going to have questions, and they're going to have mistakes that they make that you're going to have to catch, and you are going to have to be able to grasp it enough to explain it in a variety of situations. And doing all that for a new player, at least for me, it helped improve my gameplay, because I had to really sit down and think about the rules and how to apply them.
And if you're a more competitively minded person, because generally our content here is for people that aren't competitively minded, there's lots of other competitively minded podcasts for 40K out there. But if you are, and you're listening to this, and you're like, oh, well, I'm more into wanting to do the tournament scene. Well, getting new people into this that maybe you played Magic with before, or other competitive style games, into this game, as it's continuing to grow, are people you can practice with, that you can do practice games with to prepare before you go to an event, before you go to a tournament, to have all your rules down and your tactics and everything else. So learning these things is not just tied to more casual players, but I think everyone in the hobby, and it is beneficial to everyone to learn some new tactics on how to get new folks in and keep them in. Or there's no more hobby. There's no more game if we don't get new people. So
yeah, I mean, there are other games out there that had that problem. Guild Ball, for example, just got shut down here a few months back. largely, it seems, because they didn't have very much growth in the community. They weren't getting new players to come in and play, and it stagnated, and that became very difficult. And I feel bad for all those folks who were super into it and, lost support for it. And the best way to push that back is to just keep an eye out for people who might be into it and to help them. And if those things that are pragmatic aren't quite enough, I would argue that there is also sort of a deeper reason, I guess, for it. And that is, y'all, if you've sat here through all 10 episodes of it, well, this is our 10th episode, so I guess you sat through 9 episodes of this, and you kind of took in all the information that we imparted in these podcast episodes, you very much know that this is a difficult hobby to get into. It's just rough, no matter how you cut it. And because in those 9 episodes, there was a lot that we left out. There are plenty of other topics that we missed. And as a new player coming in, that's really daunting. And it is a hill that is hard to get over. And even more so, there are many points where a new person could accidentally hurt their own fun of this hobby by making mistakes. They might build their models wrong, or they might make a painting mistake that they think is impossible to fix and not want to go back to it. Or maybe they didn't get an army that was right for them or whatever. You could hurt your own enjoyment of the hobby, even if a new player does want to go at it. So I think for us, people who enjoy the hobby and really care about it, we have a duty to be ambassadors for this hobby and to look out for these people and to do our best to help them. Because that's just sort of the right thing to do,
And when you look at other games, to kind of pull off what Joe was saying earlier, like League of Legends or like World of Warcraft or any multitude of video games, when they are showing you systems or things within the game, they kind of blend it in a way that you can learn as you're going, set to a path they kind of set for you. Most games don't drop you into something and let you figure it all out yourself. Mm-hmm. Even games that do that, there's still barriers. There's still things that will actively tell you no, or points of failure. In this hobby, there really isn't if the person has the right mindset. But a lot of people have that ingrained before they start doing this, that, I messed up this dude I painted. I've ruined it. I should quit. Well, no. You're learning. That's part of it. Learning is part of the hobby. And having people around you that help show that's part of it, because when you watch your friends fail and them go, oh man, that sucks, well, I'm just going to redo it and I'm going to make things better next time, it shows you how it's supposed to be done in a way of speaking, which is, namely, there's not one real way to do it. It's just you can't give up like you would in a video game. There's no losing in a hobby. There's just learning.
Yep. Just accidental points of growth. I guess that's how I would phrase it in the most Bob Rossian way. But yeah, here there's a saying called you got to get your own house in order. And I think for us, as the hobbyists, we got to get our own house in order. Which means we have to kind of step up to the plate and help folks. And I promise you guys out there, it is worth it and it is rewarding. It's so fun to watch somebody paint their first model, or God forbid, to play their first games. Just recently, it's not recently, it was almost a year ago now, pre-COVID age, we had our buddy Corwin come down, who we had roped into this hobby because we, of course, are terrible plastic crack dealers. And he was so excited when he was building his first models and throwing paint on his first models. And we had equipped him with everything he needed to do that with some confidence. And then he came down and we played our first game. And the amount of smiling that was being done as he got to push his little guys around on the table for what was the first time. Y'all, that's incredible. that's just the bee's knees. It does not get neater. And I promise you, if you give it a whirl, it will be just as good for you.
And you'll, like, now we get weekly updates and sometimes daily updates from, like, models he's painting and stuff he's wanting to do or new projects he wants to do, where he asks us about how an army functions or, like, how certain things work. And that all came from getting him in and shutting him down and showing him the basics, even though we already know it and we learned it from somewhere. Well, we're just going to make it easier for the next person. I think you can agree with this statement. We try to be gate greeters, not gatekeepers.
Yes, totally agree. I want to be that guy in Walmart with a little vest right at the door. That's where I want to be. Well, metaphorically, not literally.
Yeah, we don't work for Walmart. So you now know why you want to get new players in the hobby.
Yeah, let's assume that at this point you have decided that you do want to. Like, we're going to just make that assumption that you went, yeah, those are some real compelling terms. I want to do the thing. Otherwise, the rest of this is going to be a moot point. You probably don't want to hang around. But let's assume that you decide to want to help folks. What comes next? Because that is kind of a daunting thing. You know, you've decided that you want to kind of get your hands dirty and guide people around, but you've kind of got to know a process. Because there's no hard and fast rules for this. So, John, what do you think, like, numero uno, step 1, ground 0? What do you think the best starting point is for trying to help somebody begin?
So, the first stepping stone is kind of like a 2-step stone, in that share what you like about the hobby, and ask them what you think they would like. So,
yeah.
We'll use Warhammer Fantasy / Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k as examples. You would kind of go to somebody and be like, well, what do you prefer? Sci-fi or fantasy? Lord of the Rings or Star Trek? Like, which one is more your flavor? Depending on that answer, they'll tell you. Then you can kind of, like, help them figure out what sort of, like, part of the game and setting they'd like. And then talk to them about why you like yours, or some cool stories, or, like, why it's fun to paint or play, or whatever aspects makes you love the factions that you play. Share that with them so they get an idea of the passion that comes with being in this hobby, and then ask them what their opinion is and what they think, and listen wholeheartedly. Hang on to every word, because that will help you figure out what they're looking for, and help prevent them from having any sort of regrets later. I know that it is a lot easier for new people to get in this hobby and not accidentally pick a wrong faction.
And God, get frustrated. Yes. Lord knows I did it multiple times.
If there's a veteran who can help them, like, figure it out. Like, I had a friend of mine years ago that wanted to get in a Gene Stealer cult right about when they first came out. And definitely not a thing I suggest for a new player, unless they know up front it's going to be tough. And the guy was completely new to Wargaming, completely new to strategy games, didn't really play them, and got really overwhelmed and quit, like, pretty quickly. Just because he didn't have the frame of reference of, like, that's going to be a bit of a difficult task. It's also going to be like 200 models to paint. Like, it didn't set in with him, and I did not tell him enough details that would have prevented that. And kind of helping someone avoid that will make it more likely to get them in and hook them in to play this game with you forever.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you could figure out what kind of makes that clock tick, you could keep it ticking. And it is worth doing. And I am someone who is a firm believer that sort of excitement and positivity is contagious. That if you are super excited about whatever it is you're doing, and you openly and honestly share that with other folks, that is a thing that people are drawn to. And it holds up most everywhere. And I think it holds up here. And that is the start of kindling this flame. You know, that is the olive branch to, extend a hand and see if they really want to get into this. And if they do, you're there. And you're ready to go. And I think, if you have that talk and they're still very interested. If anything, then maybe they're more interested than they were before. I think your next step is to play a demo game with them. Like,
Oh, yes.
there's a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas that you could try to impart to somebody through words, but there are some things that really you just gotta play it to really understand it. And running a demo game for somebody is definitely one of the linchpin points of this process. However, you have to think of a demo game a little differently than you would a normal game. You know, the point of this game, when you play a demo game, is not to win, and it is not to necessarily adhere to every rule at all times like you're in a tournament. Your goal here is to teach somebody the basics and to get their feet wet. That's what you're doing. So
You're going to want to play a small game.
yeah,
You're going to want to walk through it step by step. It's going to take a while. It will take longer than you would initially think. I normally go for 500-point games and expect it to take about 2.5 to 3 hours because it's taking time and you don't want to rush them. You want to let them learn at their own pace. Take your time with them and show respect to their time and your time and them and their learning as much as possible. And you can, add notes. You can write down the phases. You can condense certain things. So you don't have to have the rulebook open the whole time and they can reference it.
yeah. Also, when you play a demo game, try to take a list that is really soft, because you're not here to try to blast them off the table. You're here for them to be able to experience this game in a quick and efficient way to really stoke that fire. And that means, easing your foot off the pedal a little bit and allowing them to have a more back and forth experience. If that means you sort of make a softer list, do that. No problem. Hell yeah. Get in there and do it.
Characters, some troops, maybe a single elite unit, nothing big. Probably don't bring any big vehicles or something that requires an answer to. Just bring something easy. It's also an opportunity to probably use some of your lesser used models if you're constantly trying to play more competitive minded games. Bring something you can't normally bring to the table because maybe some of the other folks you play with are a bit aggressive with their list building. Take an opportunity to play stuff you wouldn't normally play either.
Yeah, and I think it is a great way for everybody to get some laughs in. If you bring something that is kind of goofy or subpar or weird or has a weird rule, that could be a great point of fun for the game. And it can make it a little more back and forth. And just the whole game, keep in mind that the goal is to A, teach somebody, and to B, have fun. And prioritize that at every step of the game. You are not here to win. You're just here to teach somebody the basics and have some laughs. And if you do that, more often than not, at least in my experience, they're probably going to want to keep playing. And if they do, if you do your demo game and everybody involved has a blast and they're they were interested before, but maybe now they're yes, I want to do this thing. I had a lot of fun. I want to build, this is where I want to buy my own army. What now? And I think that's the point where if they really had a whirl, you probably should show them some models and help guide them through buying their own little force. Because, if you just go to the Games Workshop website, there are hundreds of models across dozens of factions.
And many games, including boxed games. It can be very overwhelming.
It is definitely confusing.
That's why we have an episode about how to help pick your faction.
Yeah, because it is a more difficult process than you would think. And especially for a new person who has no reference for any of these a bajillion names that are on the website. They could potentially buy themselves into a place that they don't want to be. And if you are going to be sort of the ambassador to this person or the Sherpa on their journey up this hobby mountain, you've got to kind of help steer them away from that. However, you've got some stuff to work off of, because in step 1, we talked about having that chat and asking them what they're into. You know, just them as a person, not necessarily like what faction do you like, just them as a person. Like, you know, hey, they really liked Lord of the Rings. Okay, that has me thinking. Like, maybe I'll steer them towards an AOS faction. And they say like they really loved Elrond and all the high elves. Oh, well, we got, you know, I'm thinking immediately that we got these Lumineth Realm Lord dudes that are, you know, they're a whole lot like them high elves, and they look kind of similar. They got a cool feel. The models are all beautiful, and they're an army that's could potentially work for somebody, maybe not for a newer person, but it in small batches could work. Or, you know, conversely, maybe they say that they enjoy fantasy, but they've always really loved like ocean novels and pirate stories. Well, you know, we have an ocean faction. Like, we have the Idoneth Deepkin, who like ride all these crazy sharks and ocean critters. Like, okay, yeah, I'll steer you towards that way. You know, you could help somebody go in a direction that you know they will like, and that will just make their lives infinitely easier as they move forward. Because there's nothing more debilitating in getting into this hobby and really enjoying the hobby itself, and then realizing like 2 weeks to a month in that you picked a faction that's not for you.
Yeah, and another option is if they have nowhere to work off of, if they're having a hard time, like even hammering down, like oh, I don't know, like I just don't know what I would like it's having a hard time making those connections. You can start spouting facts about separate things. I love talking about Skaven with people, so like I'll tell people about Skaven as like the first thing, and then I'll like start explaining how Skaven interact with everybody else in AOS, or you know, I love the Chaos factions in 40k, so I talk about how they interact with everybody else, because each faction kind of interacts with every other faction in both games.
Yep.
So you can just use your faction to kind of, well, I read this story in my book about these dudes, and I thought that was neat. And well, maybe that'll make somebody go, ah, yes. I mean, who doesn't love the wacky, crazy rat boys? Like, I do.
I will admit, I'm not a Chaos player, but if they were ever going to get me to, like, buy a Chaos army, if they made ninja rats, y'all, it's done. Game over. I'm done. I'm buying, like, $500 worth of ninja rats tomorrow.
Well, like in Skaven, like if Skaven were in 40k, you would play Chaos. You would play Chaos with me.
I would. I damn well would. It's, you know, I am normally, I'm not a Chaos fan, but those rat dudes, they've got some style. And if they particularly pull out all of these, like, dark blue onesies and throw those things on with some ninja stars, oh, bud, it's game over. I will become a master rat assassin player. And I think that's true for a lot of folks. Like, if you just kind of pitch them some of these forces, eventually something is going to stick. You just got to keep on moving through them.
Yeah, and once you have an idea of what kind of faction they like or what they want, maybe you made the mistake both me and Joe have had, where we thought we were really getting into one army, and like 2 months later, we haven't touched the kits. And
a little personal, John. Just a tad personal.
It's sitting in our closet with the army book. And as happens to be the faction they like. Maybe you gift them those models or sell to them at a reduced cost. One, to get it out so you can buy more stuff to fill the void in your closet, and also get them into the game. That's a great way to get someone started. If you don't have that very specific situation, you can also just maybe buy them a box of dudes.
Yeah.
Like a small box of dudes. Like a...
You know, buy them a box of foot troops. Whatever army they have, they're going to need basic foot troops. Yeah. And, you know, if you've got a little extra dough lying around, maybe help them do that. And let's say you don't have extra dough lying around. You can still make sure that when they spend their money, they're getting the most bang for their buck. You know, whatever they decide to get into, look it over with them, find some lists online and figure out how that army is supposed to work and what models are probably good to have. And make sure you steer them towards that, you know. Maybe hang out with them, pull up the website together, and specifically show them, hey, this is a start collecting box. That means... in this army, that it comes with a hero, and it comes with this sort of foot troop, and this sort of elite unit, and these are all really cool because of X, Y, and Z. And instead of, them maybe buying something that's kind of no good or is maybe old or janky, then you've ensured that they are definitely going to get some stuff that is worth buying. And that is a great move when trying to get somebody into the hobby. And it sort of invites them to share that thing with you when they do get it and build it and paint it.
And maybe even just going to a game store with them when they go to get their stuff so that they don't feel super overwhelmed or, God forbid somebody tries to pressure them into buying something they don't need or maybe don't even want. Mm-hmm. Just being there as somebody who's well-versed in the hobby and being like, oh, no, you don't need to buy 4 transports and 4 boxes of troops and 2 characters to start this game. No, just buy that start collecting box and maybe another box if you've got the money for it.
Yep.
And you're good.
And if it's the game store where you play games, you can introduce them to people. Some people don't mind jumping into new sort of social situations and introducing themselves to everybody and kind of starting to chat. But for some people, that could be kind of hard. And if you are the person bringing your newbie into the game store, this is also an opportunity where you can introduce them to some of the cooler players in the group. And maybe over time, you could help them forge some of these new friendships for them to be able to become part of that greater community, which is always the goal. And I think that's just incredible when you see that take off.
But, Joe, we've got friends. We know why we want friends. We've got friends in the hobby. They've picked a faction they want to play. Mm-hmm. How do we keep that hobby furnace going? How do we keep them wanting to keep going for months and months?
How do we keep this hobby fire burning, you ask? Well, I think first steps first. You got to do the thing that is the time-honored tradition of all hobby Sherpas and all gate greeters. You've got to share with them your favorite content. I don't make the rules. It's just what you got to do. And not to be, self-plugging, but, you could share this podcast with them, for example. You could put all this in a little playlist specifically for guiding new people into the hobby. Pass that on over. That'd be awfully helpful for them, I hope. And we'd appreciate it. But, jokes aside, I think in general, this hobby has a whole bunch of wonderful content creators. We've talked about them on past shows, but there are incredible other podcasts talking about different aspects of this hobby. There are many YouTube channels who do beautiful videos about the lore for these various games, or how to build stuff in cool, innovative ways, or how to paint models in cool, newbie-friendly ways. All of these are resources that you enjoy, and if you enjoy them, odds are your new player might like them too. And, it is cool to spread that love around.
Maybe you read a cool novel and you want to share with your friends because you like it. Maybe you spend 4 hours a night looking at 40K memes on your phone while watching TV, and you decide that you're going to send it to every group chat that you have for this crazy game you have.
Lord, the memes. The memes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
gotta share.
To branch off that content thing and talk about the next step, which is share hobby progress. Make group chats for all your groups of friends to play it together. Maybe make a Discord. Maybe we'll make a Discord.
Yeah.
Share your hobby progress. Drop pictures. Be like, hey, I tried this technique. Tell me what you think. Give criticism to your friends. Not mean criticism, but tell them what they did good and give them ideas or discuss the things that you like about it. And just kind of enjoy seeing each other's little art projects that they send to each other.
Yeah.
Share little videos of I did this model this way because I saw this video on how to do it, and drop them both. And you can watch as your whole group of friends that you've, gotten together will grow as painters and builders and hobbyists and players and keep getting better and better. And you'll look back and laugh because you probably started off putting too much paint on a model.
I mean, yeah, or you didn't thin your paints appropriately. Lord knows I was very guilty of that.
Yeah. Or you had some bad games way back when you first started, and now every game is just super good. Maybe you first started playing with Pepsi cans as terrain, and now you have like scratch-built 3D printed terrain that's immaculately painted. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's a journey there, and you could kind of use that to look back. And also, I mean, for folks out there, we've all heard the term like peer pressure, like a million times in our lifetimes. But there is something to it. When your peers are doing something, it sort of subconsciously motivates you to do it. You know, it is the inherent tribalistic nature of humans. And in this case, you could use that good old-fashioned peer pressure for good. You can use it to help keep everybody motivated to do this hobby. And in turn, you will get some motivation back from them to keep you moving. And it is, you know, it's a beautiful little cycle that you could get more folks in on. And like we talked about earlier, like, the joy of watching our bud Corwin play his first game was a truly wonderful experience. But, you know, we get little hits of that now every time we see him make new models. And I like to think he also gets, you know, little bits when he sees us send him models. And I think that's just awesome. And the more people that I could kind of urge to keep doing that, the better the world will be. Because to be honest, I want my Instagram feed to have more mini paintings in it. So please, folks, do the thing. Flood it. Send it my way. I will love it. We are your hype men. We will take all of your hobby photos and love them.
And if you like if you have Twitter and you want to post your pictures on Twitter and like tweet at us with the pictures, I'll put it out there. I'll talk about it. I'll tell you what I like, what I don't like. Like, well, I mean, not like don't like as in mean, but like some like nice criticism, things you could try. I'm not a pro painter by any stretch of the means, but like I'll talk to you guys about it. If you want to follow us, and we'll communicate. We're really just kind of in this to hang out and do more hobby stuff with more people. And branch out and we wish we had bigger arms so we could hug more folks.
God, that's the goal. That is the goal. And I mean, in a more like, just kind of in a personal note, like obviously we started up social media accounts for this here podcast. You know, we started a Twitter and we started an Instagram. And I'm kind of handling the Instagram portion. And y'all, because I feel like a 27-year-old old man, essentially, I didn't know that they're Instagram. Like I had to have my lady teach me Instagram and how that whole thing works. And now really, like, of course, it's like a podcast. How many pictures is a podcast going to have? So instead, I'm uploading my like hobby progress and kind of what I'm doing and sending it up on the Instagram so folks could kind of get a little taste of what I'm working on. And, it is keeping me going. I'll get up, and some days my brain's just like, don't want to do no things. But then I feel that little tickle at the back of my skull. No, but you must have something to share for Instagram. You must share painting. You have to do it for the gram.
You have to do it for the gram, Joseph.
I have to do the painting for the gram. And I think, like, for all of you people out there, you've probably got a group of friends who play this with you that you could get that same feeling. And it is some good stuff. That is grade A wholesome fun. And I love it.
Now, we've talked about this hobby thing, but I think it's another time to dip back into rules for a second and talk a little bit about game theory in a way. People don't, like, you can, for those of you who have played the games before, you know 2,000 points are generally the, like, majority of games, or 2,000 points. So, like, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 points. When you're new, you will not play 2,000 point games. I don't suggest you to. I don't suggest you to for the first, like, 10 games. So if you're getting new people into the game, remember they need to slowly learn, like, what a movement phase even is, what to do in it, like, what a shooting phase is, how it works with their army. Don't expect them to be able to put 2,000 points of models on the table and play a game with you immediately after getting into the game. It's probably going to cost them more money than willing to spend at the beginning, and they probably won't do it very well, and if they keep losing, it just really badly, they're going to not enjoy the game. So don't go easy on them in a way, but take like 500 points, do your demo game, then get them started in a new army, have them build and paint their stuff, talk about the stuff that you guys are building and painting. Maybe you'll start a new force with them and play 500 points. Like, play a 500 point game with them. Then the next time you guys will sit down and play, see if they're cool with trying to up that to 750. And maybe they can get some new models and build and paint them and talk about that and what works and what doesn't work. And just keep scaling it up through escalation. That's what the type of play is called, is escalation. Until you got to 2,000 points, and they have a whole fully painted army, they understand how it works, and play, and now you can play 2,000 point games all you want, and they can go buy new models for more options to trade in and out. Maybe they want to start another faction, they do it again. Those are all options of playing this game, and if you're getting multiple friends into the game, you could turn that into a league, where you guys are trading off and doing stuff together. Maybe you all put a pot together with, everyone puts some money together, and the winner gets to, everyone else buys them a kit or something. There's all sorts of fun things you can do with it to make it not a charitable event of getting them into the game, but a shared experience of like solidarity. And I'm going to play this game with you, and we're going to have fun together. Don't feel like you're wasting my time. I'm having fun. That's the point of an escalation kind of style game.
Yeah, I mean, playing games in general is always a great way to kind of up that hobby motivation and to keep it rolling. That's one of the things I've kind of struggled with during the COVID isolation, is that I haven't gotten to play games in almost a year. And that could be rough. So it is very helpful to keep those games flowing for new players, but you have to think, you got to meet them where they're at. And it is hard to tell somebody, hey, I know you just started and you're just starting to like this thing, but I need you to drop $600 or more to get a full army. Okay, thanks. That's a rough call. So instead, just meet them where they're at. If they've got 500 points worth of models, cool, let's play 500 point games. And I think also the escalation league, if you could swing it, is a particularly delicious type of fun, where everybody is slowly growing their forces piece by piece at a pace that's comfortable for all of you. And everybody is kind of trading opponents, so you're getting a bunch of different games at one time, and trying out your rules against different people and learning new things. It is just the most fun way to build up your little starter force. And I wish I got the opportunity to do that myself when I first started. But it is one that I would highly recommend for everybody else out there. It's just so much fun. And it will definitely keep the hobby motivation going, because then you have a little bit of a deadline to get whatever your new models painted for that week are.
I gotta get this 5-man squad done before Saturday so I can show my friends.
If I don't have my little plastic army men painted, I will feel shame.
If I don't paint this 10-man berserker squad before Saturday, Joe's gonna make me wear the cone of shame.
I'll put him in the corner. I'll put you in a corner with a dunce hat. I'll do it. So help me. So help me. Yeah, I think if you could follow all of that stuff that we just talked about above, you have a really good chance of this person having a great experience getting into the game. I think you have a pretty good chance of them not buying an army that's bad for them. They probably will get something that they like. 2, you'll probably have someone who understands the game a little better, because they didn't have to learn it necessarily the hard way. They had somebody to teach them, and having a teacher is just nice. You also have someone who hopefully has the right mindset going forward. They've seen you make mistakes, and instead of reacting poorly, they've learned that doesn't have to be a big deal, at least not here in this hobby. And they've also, hopefully at this point, they've gotten tied into the community. Maybe they're making their own memes, or they're heading up to whatever your shop is for game night to play games. They are sort of a part of the community, and they are growing and thriving within it. And if you could get somebody to that point, y'all, mission accomplished. Hats off to you. You've done a phenomenal job.
You get a gold star.
You do. You can also get a tiny vest and be called a hobby gate greeter rather than gatekeeper. You get one just for yourself. And if we could, if this podcast thing that we're doing can get just one person out there to have that sort of experience getting into the game, I mean, this whole thing's been worth it as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's really our goal. And moving forward, we're going to change just slightly. So up to this point, obviously, we have been entirely focused on the new player experience because we wanted to have a series that was back to back to back to back to back to help people who are getting into the hobby. In particular, at the time we were kind of writing these things out, it was just after 9th edition had dropped. And with the new edition comes a lot of people who might be getting into this for the first time. So we wanted to get this series out first and foremost to kind of get it to the people who might need it. But from here on out, we're not, shutting the doors on the podcast or anything. We're just going to branch out and talk about some different topics that maybe aren't just for new folks, but are for even for people who've been playing this for a little while. John, in particular, would you say that you're looking forward to any topic in particular that we have sort of lined up?
Yeah. Starting a second force. It's something I've done to the point where I can't call it a second force anymore. I've done it many times. Starting new armies is kind of the inevitable stepping stone from being a new player. After playing for probably about a year, most people will decide I'm either going to pick up a new army or I'm going to start playing the other side of this game. Or maybe they'll start playing an entirely new miniatures game, which I'm sure we'll discuss some new miniatures games at some point on this show. But yeah, it would be an interesting topic. What about you, Joe? Is there a particular topic you're excited about in the future?
For me, I think I'm looking forward to having a conversation about competitive statistics and, do they even matter? Because, boy howdy, do I have some thoughts about it, and I think it would be a fun one to dive into, because it is another trap that I think some people fall into the jaws of, and I really look forward to having the opportunity to make a case for maybe helping someone not fall into it. I think that would be super fun, and that's something we can do now that we're kind of out of the 10-episode series. So folks, keep an eye out in the coming weeks for more episodes. I do want to take a minute just to kind of thank you guys for sticking with us for this first 10 episodes. I know that they are not always the greatest podcast in existence. Sometimes we do drop down to second best podcast in existence.
Or tertiary or bottom of the barrel.
Sometimes we definitely do drop below the number one spot. But, you guys are still here listening anyway, and we really appreciate that. And going forward, we want to try to improve. We've had a lot of fun doing this series and getting together to record every week. So normally we don't take too much time out of the podcast to try to plug ourselves because it feels a little weird for me still. But in this instance, because it's been 10 episodes, we want to kind of directly reach out and ask you to reach out and send us your thoughts. We've done 10 of these episodes, and we kind of want to take this as an opportunity to get some feedback on what we're doing right, what you think we could maybe do better, or what we could do differently, so that way we can try to implement it so that going forward, we can be even better for whatever the folks out there listening to this are looking for.
Absolutely. And you can do that in many ways. You can do that by, dropping reviews on iTunes or wherever podcast you do it on, leaving comments on the YouTube channel, tweeting at us, emailing us at the name of this podcast at gmail.com.
Yep. Or Instagram DMs also. I'm there.
And you can, if you don't have a lot of thoughts you want to share about it, but you have ideas, if you have ideas for topics, send them our way. If we like them and we think that we can talk about them for a while, we'll talk about it. We'll even, give you credit for being the person to tell us.
Oh, absolutely. I'm more than happy to give everybody credit for their great ideas. Probably better than mine, and we'd love to hear them.
Yeah. So, with this shameless plug kind of out there, we hope to keep making stuff for you guys.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and we're definitely going to keep the content coming. Because Lord knows, we've got far more opinions locked and loaded. But for now, at least, For this episode, that's been all of our opinions. Bonafide Kentucky Fried. We'll see y'all in the next episode.